Hi everyone, my name's Tonya and I'm with Chalk and Willow and I'm based in New South Wales in Australia. You might be able to tell from my accent, I'm not a native Australian, I'm actually British and I've been in Australia for 15 years. So I'm very excited to be with you tonight. I'm brand new retailer of Dixie Belle, premier retailer in New South Wales, and I'm super excited to be associated with this fantastic product. So thank you for joining me. Tonight I'm going to just show you how to get a lovely smooth paint finish with Dixie Belle, and then if we get a chance I'm going to show you how to use Voodoo Gel Stains as well, which will be a first time for me. I've watched a lot of videos and I've got a table prepped and ready to go, so I'm hoping that we'll have a chance to do that as well. So I've picked up this beautiful console table at a church sale actually last weekend. It's got a gorgeous patina on the top. I really like it. I don't know if you can see, it's got a few marks, but it's got a real bit of history and I love that about pieces. I think that's what gives a piece character. So what I want to do is paint the legs and paint the skirt, which is the length of timber that sits underneath the table. And I've decided I'm going to go for kudzu green. It's a beautiful pea green. I'll turn it around so you can see the label. A beautiful pea green colour. I did have a look to see what kudzu was, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and apparently it's an American vine plant, but to me it's a lovely spring green, and I just imagine it on this table with a bowl of cowslips or some beautiful yellow flowers, spring flowers, so I thought it'd be a beautiful colour to use. Now I would love to be using a Dixie Belle mini paintbrush, but I had two in my stock and I've sold them already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using a Stylmeester brush. It's a bristle brush, a synthetic bristle brush that's actually made in Europe, and I've washed one from a job I did earlier. So I do like to use a synthetic bristle. I think you can control your texture much better with synthetic. You just get a really good flow through your bristles. So I've given my paint a shake. It's a brand new tub. I've just taken the little plastic sleeve off. I'm just going to pat the lid like burping a baby, just to help that paint to drop down off the lid. And away we go. There's nothing like cracking a new pot of paint, is there? It's like opening a new jar of coffee. Super, super nice. So I don't know what time it is with you all. It's just after 8 o'clock at night here in Australia. Certainly on the East Coast. I know it's different over in WA. So yeah, so it's bedtime here really. And I'll just let you into a little secret. I'm being very Australian from the waist down because I've got my PJs on and my Uggs because it's been super cold here today. But being a true Brit, I'm dressed from the waist up. So there's my brush. It's already dampened, but on standby I've got my mister. You can just see that gives you a lovely fine mist. So I'm going to use the mister on my piece to get that nice flow of paint, but my brush is already dampened because I washed it earlier today. So what I'll do is I'll tip this table towards me so that you can see the skirt, which is this bit that I'm going to start with. I'm going to dip my brush in the paint, and you can see I've only got a little bit on the end. I don't want to overload my brush, but I'm going to start. I've masked the table off between the skirt and the bottom of the tabletop, if that makes sense. I don't want to get paint on the underside of my tabletop. I want to keep that nice and clean. So I've masked that off just with blue painter's tape. So I just need physics on my side so that you can see this and I don't drop the table on my paint pot. So away I go. I'm going to start in a corner by the leg, but I'm going to do this horizontal panel first. So what I'm going to do is just unload my paint. So I'm going to get a big blob off so that I can move it around. So I'm just going to pull up this edge here because I've got a little indented edge. So my paint is naturally going to change directions at that point. I like to paint in the direction of the grain where I can. So that's why I've just run it up that corner edge first. Now I'm applying a fair bit of pressure at the moment just to release that paint onto the piece of furniture. I should tell you that I did prep this piece earlier, so it's been cleaned with Dixie Belle's White Lightning, and because it's a habit of mine from other paints that I've used, I do like to scuff sand my piece as well. I know you don't have to with Dixie Belle on most pieces, but when something's a little bit shiny they recommend it, but I do like to scuff sand. So I've done that too, and then I've just wiped it over with a dry cloth. The reason you use a dry cloth after you've sanded is because the process of sanding creates teeth, and teeth are tiny little fibres of the wood that stick up and enable your paint to stick to the timber. And if you go over it with a damp cloth, what will happen is those little fibres will get moisture in them and they will flatten again, and you don't want that. You want something nice for your paint to stick to. So can you see that okay? With my first coat, I'm not trying to cover the entire piece. I'd much rather do 2 thin coats than a thick coat, so the aim isn't to cover the piece, it's just to get a nice flat even coat. So I've applied a fair bit of pressure, well probably a medium amount of pressure, just to offload and get that first bit in. Sue, I'm in the UK. Oh, I just missed your comment, Sue, but hello, lovely to have a fellow Brit watching, yay. So I've just unloaded my brush, and then what I do as a final stroke, I like to compare this to kissing your mother-in-law. So you want the lightest touch now, just in the direction of the timber, just to get that flat finish. So hardly any pressure at all, and I'm just letting my brush do the work, and I'm gliding it across the piece just to give me a nice flat finish. So I don't know if you can see that. Oh, it's quite heavy actually. I think it must be hardwood. And then I'm just going to come across this little lip here. Let me see. Just across this lip that sits at the bottom of the table. So it's quite narrow. And I'll just probably put 1 coat on this. I just think that it finishes it off, makes it look a bit neater. So there we are, 1 side done. I wish I had somebody here to read all your comments. I know that somebody from Dixie Belle logs on and answers any technical questions during my talking, but if you have any comments or any questions, just jot them down, and as soon as this live's finished I'll get to them. So what I've done is I've finished my front flat edge and I finished that top lip here. Now I'm going to do one of the legs, and I'll show you how to do this. I apply this rule if I'm doing things like spindles or chair backs or anything where that timber changes direction. So you can see here you've got the length of the leg that you can paint up and down, but you'll probably see at the back here a little bit better. There's one section that goes around, so there's like a groove that's been cut into this timber. So this, the leg I'm going to paint up and down in the direction of the grain, but this little bit here that is indented, I'm going to paint horizontally, so I'm going to paint around it. And the technique I use for that, and I'll do it on this leg because I think you'll be able to see it better, is again, I'm just going to unload my brush and just very short light strokes like this, and you can come backwards and forwards. So can you all see that okay? I'm just doing the back first, so you probably can't see this bit, but you'll see me coming round. So it's a bit like feathering. So you know when you get to the corner of something and you've got two corners meeting and you get that, the amount of paint that kind of sits in a corner when you're painting is where you can get pooling. I use the feathering technique there as well. So feathering, just very short light strokes. So that's what I've just done around that bit that's indented. And now, so just feather where you've got another direction of paint is going to meet. And then I'm just going to come up the entire leg. So again, I'm just working the paint onto the piece first. And really, it doesn't matter if you use long or short strokes for this bit. But remember my rule about mother-in-law's kisses? You just finish with that really light stroke. And I try and get that in one continual stroke in the direction of the grain. And that's really good. I'm really happy with that. And I'll bring the camera down to show you a little bit nearer so that you can see it too. So again, I'm coming up and down just to apply that paint, just to move it off my brush. And I'm just working a section at a time. And then again, those very light strokes just to even it out. And got a really nice flat finish. I can feel though, although I washed my brush earlier, it's starting to get a little bit dry. So I'm just going to use my mister and turn my brush and just give it a little mist. That just keeps my brush bristles moist and helps that paint to flow. So hopefully you can still see me back here. So again, I'm unloading that paint, not worrying so much about the length of the strokes that I'm using with my brush. But on those last strokes, nice long light strokes like this, and the lightest touch. So I'm barely pressing. All I'm doing is pulling that paint up and leaving really nice, long, level strokes. So no texture in this paint at all. Beautiful flat finish. Not a fat finish. So I'm going to unload here, just get the majority of my paint off, and again round this base, and this is how you would paint spindles, chairs, anything that's small, you know, or narrow, anything with a bit of detail. So little feathery strokes going around, and I'm just feathering on the side where that's caught, because I don't want to have a line on the side where I'm going to paint up from, because this paint will dry and then I'm going to have a kind of a line of paint that will be drying already, and that's going to add texture to my piece, and I don't want that. So again, just loading up my brush, unload, and then you can start moving the paint. So going to mist my brush again and finish that with a longer stroke. And what I'll do this leg and I'll work out if there's a way that I can see my messages, just to see if there's anything you need to know while I'm doing this. I can't see anything obvious on my phone, so I apologise if I can't see your comments at the moment, but hopefully you're all totally fascinated and it's edge of the seat stuff, or at least learning something anyway. So finishing with long strokes with the lightest touch just to get that flat finish, and I'm going to come round to the front I've missed a bit. This is such a gorgeous green. I absolutely love it. I was very excited to use this, and super excited when I became a retailer. I got my spoon bouquet. Look at this. Isn't that just the most fantastic bouquet ever? So excited to be able to go through there and pick from all these beautiful colours. So it's tempting not to open one of everything at the moment, just to try them all. But let me know what your favourites are. Have you done anything in this kudzu green? If you have, I'd love to see photos, so share it in the comments. So I'm just painting this top lip, and I've just kind of flicked the paint towards me. It's almost like wiping your brush clean. And then I'm just going to finish in the direction again, just to smooth that out. So hopefully you can see that. And I'll come along and do this other leg now. So again, this is my horizontal bit, so those feathery strokes. So you can see, if I show you here, so see where this paint is coming down onto the leg, there's a little dribble there. That's where I feather. And that way I haven't got texture. When I come to paint this panel properly, my paint isn't going to dry in a line. So it's going to, I'm going to be able to join up to it really easily without there being any texture there. So that's what I mean. That's what the kind of area that you would feather. So on corners of things. I hope you're all following okay. It feels very weird because I feel like I'm doing all the talking and I can't see your comments to chat back with you. So I'm sorry about that. My computer's just turned off. I was hoping to have it set up a bit like Mission Impossible with my screens going, and got my video screen and got my conversation screen. But me and technology are miles apart from each other, as everybody in my family knows. So that didn't work out according to plan, but we're still going for it. So I've unloaded my brush, really long, light strokes. You'll all think of kissing your mother-in-law when you remember light strokes now, hopefully. I can't believe, like, my background is interior design, so I'm a qualified interior designer and a colour consultant as well. So I've worked with a few paint companies, and I don't know if in America you would have heard of them or not, but Dulux and Taubmans are two big ones in Australia that I've done work with. And I just love colour. I love how it can affect a mood, how it brings energy to a room. I love mixing colour. And I got into painting furniture because as a family we moved up from coastal country Victoria. We were like on a Australian country homestead, and we moved up to the coast, and none of our furniture really fitted, so I started painting. And that's how Chalk and Willow started. That was about 4 years ago. So I did some of my furniture, and then a friend saw and asked me to paint some for her. And I honestly haven't looked back. A couple of years ago I was working in a school, and absolutely loved all the relationships with the children. But I'm a Christian, and God led me to open Chalk and Willow, and it's been the most incredible blessing. And I love my relationships with my beautiful customers. It's such a beautiful place here. So we had this space built, and I just love it. Makes my heart sing. And so to take something as well, like furniture wise, I don't know about you, but I still get a real buzz when I paint things. So I do it every day. I try and have Sundays off, but it doesn't always work because I just really enjoy what I do. But I still get an absolute thrill out of taking something old, or, you know, orange pine, or just something that would end up in landfill, and transforming it with paint. It's just so easy. And you know, these pieces that we can certainly pick up here that are destined for landfill, to be able to give them a new lease of life is just so exciting. And yeah, like I say, you know, you can take something dirty and just kind of go, oh, yay, it's so exciting. You know, so I still get a thrill out of painting. So whether you're new and you're just starting your first piece, I have to tell you, it's a highly addictive hobby. You will love it. You'll love that you can transform furniture for not very much money. Just a pot of paint. And these Dixie Belle products are fabulous. The coverage is incredible. Water-based, no VOCs, so you've got no nasty chemicals or anything like that. So really nice to use. And yeah, you'll be, you know, if you're about to paint your first piece, you'll be looking for your second and your third, because I don't know anybody who's done a workshop with us who hasn't gone on to transform several pieces. So you can see I've just done my legs, so same technique for all of them. I've come horizontally around the band, and I would do this with any curved piece, so whether it's a pedestal table, or I'm just having a look around to see what I've got. Anything with a curve that runs around widthways, you'll use that horizontal technique. When you're going up and down a leg, you use that vertical technique, ending just in a very light stroke. So I'm just going to turn this around, and then I'll finish off that front side. So I like to leave a piece overnight before I put the second coat on. Having said that, in the summer paint dries much faster, so I definitely would get a second coat on during the day, but I do like to give it a little bit of time, because I find that you get really good adherence, and it just I don't know, I think it seems to paint better the second coat when you have left it for a little bit of time. That might just be me, might be my habits, but that's what I tend to do. So I'll get the second coat on this tomorrow. The second coat will go on much easier because you don't have so much to cover. But because we've got that beautiful flat base without texture, you won't get texture with the second coat as well. If you've got texture in your first coat, you can sand it off lightly. You can refinish it with one of the refinishing pads, which look like this. And that'll just sand it back without removing all your paint, but you can certainly remove texture with this paint. It's not hard to do. So I'm just going to come around the front and finish this edge here. So I'm just, my first dip in the pot and then on the piece is almost like wiping off the paint, and then I move it around. So that's just, it's just the technique that I find works for me. I'm sure that painting is a bit like writing with a fountain pen. So we've all got different techniques, and it's finding what works for you. And I always, I like to watch videos as well before I try a new technique. So, you know, because I'm fairly new to some of the Dixie Belle products, like the gel stains and things, I always want to see how other people use them, and everybody uses them slightly differently, and that's okay. So I just watch them and I work out what I think is going to work for me, and then I'll have a go. So there's so much information out there. Dixie Belle have got some great tutorials on YouTube, and also these lives where you're watching people who paint for a living are great, because you know, you get used to how paint feels and how it goes on different timbers, and you just pick that up from using the product. So it's just experience, so you'll get to that point too in no time. How's that looking? Are you loving the colour? I'm doing, I'm going to drop you down a little bit so you can see this edge that I'm painting. You can see that blue masking tape as well where I've masked it off. That's just so I get a really nice finish. When I take the tape off, it's going to be nice and neat. I'm a bit of a neat freak. So, just finishing with my really long, light strokes. This is covered so beautifully. It's a most gorgeous colour. So many lovely colours to use. I think as a furniture refinisher, my worst thing that people ask for is white. We live really near the ocean now, and I think people think that if you want to go Hamptons or coastal, it has to be white, which of course it doesn't. But I think when you've got so many glorious shades to play with, why would you stick to white? Have a bit of colour in your life. So that's it, like that first coat has taken what, 10 minutes? I've been talking for 10 minutes. So that's it. So I'm going to come back in the morning. If I look around now and I see that I've missed a bit, so say I'd left a bit of timber here, once this paint starts to dry, with Dixie Belle you can reactivate it. So while it's still damp, I could spray that leg if it was a bit textured and just very lightly move that paint up again. But there'll come a point where I really won't want to play with it. I'll want the paint to sit and to dry. And I always think it's better to go back after the paint has dried before you start playing with it, because what can happen is if I overwork my paint, I'm going to start pulling it away from the piece. As it's drying, it's starting to adhere to that timber, to those teeth that we created with the sanding, and I don't want to remove that paint now. So if I notice anything, I'm just going to leave it, knowing that I will get it with the second coat, and I've just got this beautiful flat finish that I don't want to play with. So I'm going to put the lid on my paint, and I'm going to open some gel stain. How exciting. So I'm going to use the water-based Voodoo Gel Stains, and I'll move on to my next little table. So I'm just going to drop you down. I'll try not to make you feel travel sick. Just move my paint bouquet. Okay. Now, here's the scary bit. You might see my pyjama bottoms now and my Ugg boots. Hopefully you won't. But if you do, it doesn't matter. We're all friends. So this piece, which I'll show you, you can't see it there, can you? Sorry, I told you I'm not very good with technology. I just want to try and drop my phone down a little bit. There. I'm not touching it again. I've moved you, I'm not touching it. So, I have this console table that I've had in the house, and I had put dark wax on the top and it ended up with cups and things on, and you know, wax isn't always a totally durable finish, and so you could see the rings and things. So what I did this afternoon to prep it was I took some turpentine. Now I don't know if this has got another name in America, and I apologise if it has. I think we could call it mineral spirits too, so, or mineral turpentine. So I wear gloves with this. It's a bit stinky, it's a bit like nail varnish remover. So I have my gloves, and I take one of these little scrub sponges. So it's just a washing up sponge. You can see I use them till they're falling apart. So I poured my turpentine on the surface, and I used my scrub sponge to just, it doesn't really scour, but just to clean the top, and I could see the wax melting. And I saved this to show you. I wouldn't normally show you a dirty rag, but that was my antiquing wax that came off. This was one of the cloths. So I did it twice, and then with Terps, what you have to do is rinse it. So I took my spray bottle, gave it a good spray of water all over, and then gave it another wipe with some paper towel just to remove this kind of dirty stuff off it. So now I'm left with my lovely timber finish. So I thought, I've painted this piece in burlap. So I'll just, can you see that? It picks up the colour of the paper in the drawer fronts, which I've decoupaged on. I might do a whitewash over this. I want to see it in daylight to see how dark it is. So I'm going to see. And so what I thought I would do is put on Tobacco Road, which is the brown Voodoo Gel Stain. And then if it's a little bit too dark, I'm going to blend with the white. So this is totally new for me. This is the first time I've done this, but I did watch a couple of videos. So I'm going to grab my gel stain really quickly and a brush and a bowl. So give me a second. Talk amongst yourselves. There's my gel stain. And I'm going to use one of the Dixie Belle chip brushes, and I'm a big recycler. So over on my workbench I've got takeaway coffee cups, I've got takeout containers, because I'd much rather use this than a plastic bowl. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with Tobacco Road first, and this is it. So it's Dixie Belle's Voodoo Gel Stain. You can just see here, because this is a water-based product, sometimes the water separates. So I'm just going to give it a good shake, and be very glad I've got long sleeve t-shirt on so you can't see my arms. This would be very good if you've got bingo wings. So giving it a good shake. It's got a really handy nozzle, and what some people do is squirt it on, rub it in, rub it off, or leave it on, and away they go. But I also saw a video where she tipped some into a bowl. In fact, I'm just going to take the lid off, and brushed it on. So I thought I'm going to do that because it will give me a little bit more control. So there we are, that's Tobacco Road. So it's like, oh, it looks like milk chocolate. I'll just pour a bit in front of the camera so you can see the consistency. It's like the consistency of, I would say, thickened cream. So I'm just going to put my lid back on there. And I'm going to take my chip brush, and these feel incredible. They are really soft bristles. I'm really impressed with those. So, first time using a chip brush and first time using Voodoo Gel Stain. I'm just going to get my hair out of the way because it would be just like me to paint it. And I'm literally going to put a little bit on the end of my brush. I'll come and show you again. Get my steps in. It looks like melted chocolate, doesn't it? Like you could dip your strawberries in that, couldn't you? And I'm just going to brush it on. So, can you see that? It's a nice colour. Not too dark. It's not like an espresso dark. It literally is like you've melted chocolate. I've just got to remember that it isn't. So like I said, this is a water-based gel stain, so makes it super easy to clean up as well. So love that. I don't like having to clean up with like Terps and stuff. It's not my favourite thing to use. So I'll come and do the edge afterwards, but we'll just get this on. I might need a little bit more. But what I thought I'd do was we'll wipe it back. So you can leave it on if you want a thicker coat, or you can wipe it back if you just want a stain. So I'm going to wipe it back and see how it looks. Just finish painting that top bit. And if you've just joined us, I'm so sorry that I'm talking the whole way through this. I haven't got the function to, or I can't see where the function is to read your comments and answer them. But I will, as soon as this is done, I will go on and I'll answer any questions from your comments. So feel free to ask away. I'm not ignoring you. I do feel like I'm rabbiting on rather a lot, but it's because I can't read the comments and paint. But hopefully I've got another live at the end of the month, and hopefully I'll have a little helper who can be on the computer at the same time telling me what people are saying. Hopefully you're not all saying shut up and get on with it. So I might need a tiny bit more of this. You can probably see better than I can. So just wipe across the top there. I don't know if you can hear that, it's just started raining. My shop is in a tin structure, and so it gets the tin, it's got a tin roof, and it's very loud when it rains. So hopefully we'll just have a shower. As if by magic it just struck up even louder. I'll come a bit nearer because I want to make sure that you can hear me okay. So I'm just putting this on. I'm kind of just flicking the top here because it's not wide enough to get really a long stroke. And then what I'm going to do is take some paper towel and try not to get it all over my hands because it is a stain, and I'm just going to wipe it off. Oh, I hope you can hear me. I'm going to wipe it off in the direction of the grain. Enjoy the peaceful sound of the rain. Ooh. It's so nice. Yay! Oh, that's so good. It looks lovely. And that was just so easy to apply. So this is the first time I've used this product. I hope none of you are out there going, no, don't do it like that. So I'm just literally wiping off the excess. I'm going to raise my voice a little bit in case you can't hear me because it's raining. Oh, that's such a lush colour. This is Tobacco Road, if you've just joined us. It's the colour of melted milk chocolate. So, hope my drawers don't fall out. Can you see that okay? Looks a bit orange on the video, but it doesn't look orange at all under my lights. I daren't move you in case I lose you again. So I'm going to pour a little bit more into my container. Just to do the edges. So because I'm doing the edges, I don't want a lot of product on my brush. So I'll just show you, it's a tiny amount, but you probably can't see it quite so well because the bristles are dark now. But only a tiny bit, because I just want to do this front edge. And I'm just kind of, can you see how I'm holding my brush and pulling it kind of along its side edge? I'm not holding it like I'm like I would if I was painting it. It's really just the edge of my brush. I'm just going to wipe it up the sides. Don't you always find that those side bits where they're cut differently, the stain and everything tends to sit differently on the sides of a piece? And it looks different, doesn't it? You can kind of see the grain differently. So I'm going to, where I've got it and it's kind of coming on the top, I want to make sure that's in the same direction. I think, and that's what I'm going to do anyway, because I don't want it to suddenly have a much darker patch where I've kind of caught the edge. So I just use that feathering technique that you saw me use on the legs. So I'm going to get a bit more paper towel, excuse me, leaning over you. Okay, I've got a little patch there. I think I wiped that bit off too quickly. But if I'm going to do a blend with the white, I'm hoping it might be kind of a bit driftwoody, because we live so near to the ocean. Might be nice to kind of have that coastal look. So that's why I thought I'd do a slightly different colour as well. And I'll lift you and show you at the end. I don't want to move you now in case I lose you, because I almost lost you earlier and I don't want that to happen again. So what I'm going to do is take some white, and this one's called White Magic. This one, Voodoo Gel Stain. Going to give it a little shake. And I'm just going to use the same brush. I'm not worried because I'm not painting. It's, you know, I'm just going to have a little blend, a little play really. And so I'm just going to use the same brush. But I'm not going to, oh, that's why I couldn't squirt it. It comes with a little protective cap. Just if you ever order it and can't work out why you can't get the product out. So I'm not going to paint this all over. I'm just going to do it in patches and see how that looks. And if it looks dreadful, well then I'll do it all over. So let's have a play. So a little bit of white. And I'm kind of dry, well, I suppose it's a bit of a dry brush technique really. So I've got a bit more in one patch and then I've dry brushed it out. So hopefully that'll be, you know, make it look like it's not all painted on in one place. So I'll put a bit more at the front there and almost dry brush it out just to blend it, and we'll see how we go. How you all doing? Are you okay? The rain's just stopped, so I can talk in my normal inside voice again now. So, won't leave any bare patches, but I'll just drag what's on my brush just to blend. So I've hardly used any product at all, and we'll see how it looks. Might look dreadful, might look fabulous, and then I'll have learnt an exciting new technique. And I always say to people, it's only paint, like it's not nuclear fission. So it feels a little bit sticky where I'm going over the thicker gel stain, just so you know. But not sticky like an oil would feel sticky. So I actually think, looking at this, I do like the white over the Tobacco Road, so I'm going to put a little bit more on because that looks quite nice. So again, just where I didn't have very much before, just going to put a little bit on. I don't really know how long you can play with this for. I suppose you've got a bit of a open time because it's water based. But I'm sure the lovely lady from Dixie Belle who will be on this video answering questions will be able to tell you that, what your open time is. And also, the other thing that I had to ask somebody the other day was, do you have to seal it because it's water based? And they recommended that you would seal it. So you've got benefits of easy cleanup, but just put another coat of protection over it. So something like the top coat, and I'd probably go matte. So let's wipe that back. And I think, you know, I could come in the morning and just have another play with this till I got it just right. It might be that, you know, you want to put a bit of the smoke, up in smoke I think it's called, through it as well, which is the grey. But I like this effect. I think it looks nice. But I do think I will have another play with it. I've got to do the back plate, but let me see if I'm just going to unclip you, but I won't take you out of the phone holder, just so that you can see. I'll try not to drop my phone. So can you see? So that's a blend. So there's a bit more timber, a bit more of the Tobacco Road and the white in places. So I'll just have a play with evening that up a bit, I think, or maybe even adding, like I say, maybe even adding the up in smoke, which is the grey Voodoo Gel Stain, and then I'll do the edges too. So hopefully, I mean, that was the first time I've used it and it wasn't complicated, and I don't think it's going to be hard to fiddle with to get it right either. So if I want to mix some other colours in or finish off the edges and finish off this back plate, that's not going to be hard to do, but certainly very easy to apply and super easy cleanup too. So that's what I plan to do tonight. I'm going to actually, while I've still got you, I'll show you how flat the finish is on my, hello, I've got you on a little sticky pad on a vase because I needed to prop you up a little bit. I'll just show you how flat, not there, I won't. Just see if I can show you that there's no texture in this paint. There's a better light. So you can see there's a patch where you can see a little bit of timber. I'm not worried about that because I've got that beautiful flat finish without brush strokes. So can you see that? So nice and smooth. So when I come out tomorrow, I'll have a look at how it's dried, and it might be that just needs a second coat in a couple of patches, and then I'll be good to go, and I'll have a look at the top and see how that looks as well tomorrow. So thank you for joining me for my very first Dixie Belle live. Absolutely terrifying, but you've all been lovely because you haven't been able to ask me anything because I haven't been able to read it. So I'm going to go inside and make a cup of tea and have a look at all your comments and questions, and I'll get back to you. But it's been my absolute pleasure to share these Dixie Belle products with you tonight. So we've looked at creating a flat finish, and we've used kudzu green, and then we've had a play with gel stains too. I'm Tonya from Chalk and Willow, and I'll see you again at the end of the month. Thanks for joining me. Bye.